What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel, check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on some comments that Jason Whitlock made about LeBron James and his career, his legacy after after he plays after once LeBron James is done with his basketball career. Um, and what he believes to LeBron James is going to be like his legacy is going to just crash and burn, right? And so he said in his latest podcast about LeBron James, uh, and I agree with him. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to play the audio from his podcast, and I spoke on this before because what he's doing is he's commenting on some statements that John Stockton made. And the statements that John Stockton made, I think he went a little bit further, gave a little bit more he a different take on what John Stockton said than what I said. But with that being said, I'm going to play what his response to John Stockton's statements about LeBron James. And here we go.
John Stockton took some shots at LeBron James, and I'm not going to skip it. I want to play the clip of John Stockton talking about LeBron James didn't climb the mountain; he took a helicopter to the top. Let's play the clip.
I like kind of brag on Michael Jordan here a little bit, and I think we were a similar ilk with the Jazz. Is I like where guys just tighten their belt up and say, you know what, let's go to work. We just got to get better. Yeah. We got to play harder. We got to play smarter instead of just, where's the grass greener? I'm going to go there and win a championship. I think it devalues that. You're not climbing the mountain. You're taking the helicopter to the top.
Totally agree.
So,
That to me, when Hall of Famers that are generally speaking pretty quiet, want to be ignored, just sitting out in Utah, when they're taking shots at you at the end of your career, like he just took at LeBron James, this is an indication of LeBron's legacy, I think, is going to diminish in retirement, not elevate. And Michael Jordan's reputation and legend has elevated in retirement. It was already high when he was done. People considered him the GOAT, but that case has only gotten stronger. Steve, I don't think retirement is going to treat LeBron James very well as it relates to his legacy and reputation in NBA. This GOAT debate, I think 10 years from now, people are going to be saying, LeBron was probably fifth or sixth. He will drop out of the number 2 deal. Your thoughts?
Well, this much is clear. John Stockton does not work.
All right. So before Steve, Kim chime in, I just want to say about what Jason Whitlock just said. Right, I do believe that his reputation is going to diminish because his leverage is the fact that he is playing, right? And so while LeBron James was playing with the Lakers or whatever team LeBron James was playing with, he always used his leverage as a superstar basketball player to get his way. And so along the way, with him abusing that leverage and not really using it the correct way, instead of building relationships and doing things with the big picture in mind, that is going to bite LeBron James. He used his superstardom, his fame to as leverage so he could take shortcuts. And in the end, he's going to find out that those shortcuts are not, really wasn't shortcuts. And so that's what he's going to find out. And as soon as LeBron James don't have any leverage, and as soon as, people are not paying to see him and he's out the league, then that's when everything will, he'll realize that, he did himself a disservice with some of the moves that he made throughout his career, jumping around from team to team. And like I said in my video about when I responded to what John Stockton said, those, guys like John Stockton, Karl Malone, Isaiah Thomas, Matt, all the guys from the old school, Larry Bird, those guys who didn't jump around from team to team, trying to make rings or chase rings, they probably kind of resent the fact that LeBron James is moving ahead of them. So-called, he thinks he's moving ahead of them, in the record books, with rings and stuff like that. And he's making it look like he accomplished more when he really didn't. And he's trying to make it look like he was a better ball player than some of those guys, when in my opinion, he wasn't, right? And so I think when those guys, when these guys start to talk out and speak like that, it carries a lot of weight, because LeBron's career, like I said, is winding down. And so, and typically, like also what Jason Whitlock say, veteran players don't typically come out and speak out against, these guys like that, because really, they probably feel like they have more important things to do. But, like part of their legacy is also connected to LeBron James. You don't want to be skipped in line by somebody who cheated, or you don't want your stats to be washed away by somebody who took shortcuts. So, they're thinking about that too, because it affects their legacy. John Stockton, now he don't have as many. He will never catch John Stockton as far as assists. He won't catch John Stockton. He'll have more turnovers than John Stockton, but he won't have more assists. But also Steve Kim said some things on here too that I want to listen to and comment on too, because I think all of the guys on Jason Whitlock's show made some good points on this panel.
Clutch Sports. He will never work for Clutch Sports. He may never get a media job that is funded by Clutch Sports. This is the ironic thing. LeBron's plan to longevity his way, or his status to being the greatest of all time, by playing many more years and amassing numbers and then hopefully picking up titles, has actually backfired the last 3-4 years. And look, if you look at every other sport, just because you have the most amount of yards, touchdowns, home runs, goals, doesn't necessarily make you the greatest. And to be fair, winning the most amount of championships does not necessarily make you the greatest, because in that case, it's Bill Russell and it's the end of argument. There is no other argument then, right? And LeBron James and his team's agenda to go out there and overshadow Jordan by sheer volume has absolutely backfired.
Yeah, so, and I'm glad of that. I'm glad that LeBron James, like it backfired on him. And the reason why it started with like just ordinary, basic, just ordinary everyday fans, people who was like, people who had the opportunity to watch basketball from the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s to present day. You saw, like what Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, all those guys, how they operated. You saw how John Stockton and Karl Malone, how they operated, Clyde Drexler, and all those guys who played, Charles Barkley. LeBron James, he just did it. He just took shortcuts, and he tried to, he went the easy route. When I think, I always say that LeBron James, in my opinion, he cheated himself. He cheated himself first, because in order to accomplish these goals, you have to put in that work and get better as a player. He never really developed a mid-range shot. He still to this day can't really play with his back to the basket. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and not just those guys, but those, they used to pride themselves on working on a new skill every offseason. So when they come back next season, they have something else that their opponent have not seen. And now their opponent, the defense got to step their game up to counteract what the new skill that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, like these guys perfected their art. And as a fan, you want to see, and if you're a basketball fan, you want to see these guys perfect their art. And with LeBron James, it was never like that. He never, seemed like he wanted to perfect his art. Now he stayed in shape, but he didn't, physically, but he never really was the kind of guy who was out there perfecting his art, working on his left hand or working on his ball hand. Like he, to this day, his ball handling is still sloppy. He still turns the ball over, more so than any other great point guard, Isaiah, Magic, John Stockton. He has more turnovers than all of those guys. So the longevity thing really has backfired on him. That's, and I used to argue with people. They said, like longevity, that means something. That means something. And yes and no. Like if it take you, somebody else go to college and they get a degree in 4 years, but then you go and you get a degree in 8 years, you can't brag about, you have a degree. You didn't upstage them. It took you longer to accomplish what somebody else did. It took you twice as long. So LeBron James been in the league for like 7 or 8 years longer than Michael Jordan. And then so he wants to be able, to be in that GOAT conversation. Like I said, basketball fans wasn't going for it. Mainstream media tried to push that narrative, but they just, so many fans just push back on that narrative, especially people who were able to see, watch basketball over the last 30 years or so, like that. Like before LeBron James came into the league, a lot of those fans, if you got to see Kobe, and how Kobe, how he dedicated himself to the game. And then you look at what LeBron James is doing, then as a fan, you're getting cheated. You're getting cheated. And so I agree with Steve Kim when he says that LeBron James, his longevity really just backfired on him. And once I found out that LeBron James was going for this, he was taking the longevity angle. And this probably, once I realized it, and then, this probably was like about 3 years ago, I said that the longer LeBron James play, the worse it will. I was hoping that he played this long, and I'm glad. I said this like 3 years ago. I said I hope he play, man, for as long as he can, because the longer he play, the more he will get exposed, and people will see. If you playing in the league 20, 22, 23, 25 years, and you catching people, you breaking people records like that, then people figure it out. Even LeBron James fans will figure it out. When you had somebody else who come behind him and may try to play another 25 or 30 years. And I just recently heard Stacey King said that Michael Jordan played at least 82 games, probably about like 8 or 9 times during his career. And that's not including playoffs and then into the championship, so, but LeBron James did it like 2 times. Once or twice he played all 82 games, so load management also comes into factor when it comes to LeBron James, load management, so he took every shortcut that he was allowed to take. And fans are not, they're not dumb. Fans realize them. Fans see what LeBron James did. And once he retire, the fans are already, getting at him. So that's not even an issue. Some basketball players that don't want to, they don't want to mess up, or they want to continue to hold favor with certain networks and certain like Clutch Sports and stuff like that. Those guys won't come out the woodwork until after all this. Once Clutch can't really continue to write those checks and do business with these people, then they eventually the truth is going to come out. And so there was one more guy on the panel with this show. He made some comments too about LeBron James that I want to get into.
fired. He's actually going to leave the NBA. Let's say he decides this is his last year and he's going to do a tour or whatever. I don't know if it's going to be the kind of great celebration that he anticipated. I think people have held their breath as it relates to who LeBron really is. They haven't really said it, and they all know it, and they don't like the team that LeBron, I'm talking about his off-the-court team, that he put together and forced on the Miami Heat, forced on the Los Angeles Lakers. If you just look at the way the Lakers are handling the end of his tenure with the Lakers, people have been holding their noses and tolerating LeBron, and now that it's near the end, it's going to turn a bit ugly for LeBron James.
Okay, before this next guy come and speak on, it is. And the closer and closer LeBron James get to retiring, the more people you see come out and say that, you know, LeBron James is he already had a run-in with Kendrick Perkins, you know, at first Kendrick Perkins was kind of like, you know, towing the line, saying like whatever, anything in LeBron James's favor, he was towing that line. Another guy, Nick Wright, you know, I think once LeBron James retired, Nick Wright will probably change his tune. Colin Cowherd already changed his tune. You know, he was saying some things about LeBron James. I was like, wow. You know, at first he was saying things on behalf of LeBron James, like on the good side, right? But now he's coming around and he's starting to he's starting to reverse his stance on LeBron James and like how good or great he think LeBron James is. So yeah, man, I'm just waiting for him to retire. I hope he played 2 more years because he cheated the game and he cheated himself.
This is going to be a crash landing rather than a smooth celebratory landing.
Well, I think it's already in a free fall. I think the Bronny thing started the free fall. I think people around the league are looking like, yeah, you're LeBron, but you're not 27-year-old LeBron. You're not even 34-year-old LeBron. Like, you're an old man now who's dictating and destroying the Lakers because you want your son to play. And look what's happened. And so, they got Luka, but it's like the discussion this offseason is, hey, how do we unload LeBron? Or can we unload LeBron? Can you imagine that discussion happening for Michael Jordan? People were distraught when he left Chicago. And he said, hey, if Phil ain't here, I'm leaving. This is crazy. And nobody's ever asked Michael Jordan to leave any room he's ever been in. LeBron, they're like, hey, Cleveland probably wasn't that sad to see him go in the end. I'm not sure Miami was that sad to see him go. What team has he left besides Cleveland the first time that people weren't like, not so bad. We can move on and be okay.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Like when LeBron James leave, man, Miami, once he left Miami still was able to, to put out a good team, with Jimmy Butler and what's the guy name? Those guys in Miami. I forgot the big guy name, but they Miami did good without LeBron James, and Cleveland right now with Donovan Mitchell, they're looking good, so it's really not it's really not worth it to allow LeBron James to hold your team hostage and use his leverage to get over on your team. And now Lakers management is treating him differently now that they know that his time is winding down. And then now you have a new owner in there, and the new owner basically is not really for all this nonsense that LeBron James brings to the table. And also he said that Michael Jordan, right? When Michael Jordan left Chicago, I was one of the people that was upset when he left Chicago that second time after that second three-peat. I was like, man, Mike still have some he still has some gas in the tank. I was upset about that, because I thought I wanted, as a champion, I wanted Mike and them to leave, like if somebody to beat them, somebody to take the crown from them. I'm a Jordan fan. I was a Chicago fan as long as Mike was playing there. But I wanted, like somebody like pass the torch, somebody like Kobe come in and beat them, and now Mike, he retired, but it happened the way it happened. Mike was loyal to Phil Jackson, and so he stayed there. But yeah, LeBron James, man, I just think he just cheated himself and he cheated the game. And it is going to show when it's time for him to once he leave the court, man. And just like Jason Whitlock said, it's a crash landing for LeBron James. And so that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. With that being said, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next episode. Peace.